Chris, with your impressive experience as the founder of 24 companies across diverse industries, could you share with our audience your journey and the pivotal moments that led you to become a serial entrepreneur?
I started out very early. So I don't joke about this. I started literally my first business when I was 6 years old. So there's something called Burpee Seeds. I sent $5 in to get this pack of, or this set of 50 packs of seeds, like watermelon seeds, sunflower seeds, flower seeds. And I sold those door to door, grossed $50 and netted 45. And I was like off to the races. That kind of hooked me. But really seeing my mom growing up struggling as a female in the 80s, she had to put a roof over our heads. She always had brilliant business ideas, but could really never get them off the ground at all. And that kind of left an impression upon me in a big way. Later on in life, when she was well into her 50s, she finally made FU money. She made a very good amount of money, but it took her a very long time to get there. And that was really what started me out on the path. So myself, I've owned a lot of businesses. I started them very young, but those aren't the businesses that I count. I only count businesses above the age of really 18, 19 years old. I went to NYU, New York University. I became the youngest stockbroker ever on Wall Street. And at that time, I worked for the number 1 and 2 producers. That really taught me a lot. And the one thing that I learned is that I didn't like selling stock and selling other people's ideas. I always thought I could do way better than other people. That's just what I thought. And so I set out on my own path to go ahead and start companies and really do my own thing.
That's an amazing story. I think being inspired by your mom and that kind of that, because I was just reading about your startup just now, and I feel like if she had Gusher, like maybe like she would have been a lot faster than 50.
Yeah, most definitely. She would have literally been able to go right from the get-go. We've got a lot of female founders. We have people all across the globe using Gusher. It doesn't matter your race, your ethnicity, your income, your education level. What matters really is the content of your character and really how viable the idea is and whether or not you can talk about it effectively, which we help those entrepreneurs do. It's a big deal.
Definitely. You said something about content of character. What would you say is like the main characteristics that you look for in an entrepreneur that comes to you?
We find that the most successful entrepreneurs, and this is going to sound contrary to what other people say, are not these slick people that are really trying to talk fast and do whatever. What really they are extremely honest. Like honesty is their religion. They don't try to fake it till they make it. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if they're working out of their garage, they say they're working out of their garage. If they're a 2-person company, they say they're a 2-person company. If they don't know something and they need help, they don't pretend to know it. They ask for help. And so those are the people that really make headway in a big way. I don't know if you can see this, but I've got goosebumps because every time I talk about that, it has an impact on me because it's really true.
Definitely. I think that's one of the main features I've seen as well. And because I've hosted so many founders, like different types of founders, people starting from like very early stage, idea stage, and you can tell they're very honest. Like wherever they are, they're like, I don't know this. Like I don't understand AI, but I'm reading a book about it, so that's where I'm at. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and the thing is you find about people like that is they tend to help. They're not just asking for help. They tend to be very helpful, fundamentally good people. It's just in their blood. They're not out to harm somebody. They're looking to make the world a better place. And that's what we're looking to do.
Definitely. Gusher is your latest venture aimed at empowering entrepreneurs whose ideas often face funding obstacles. Could you explain the inspiration behind Gusher and how it is reshaping the startup landscape?
Sure. Let me explain what Gusher is first, okay? So real quickly, Gusher is a platform to launch companies without the need for capital, without the need for investors. So what happens is people apply to join a company in exchange for performance-based equity. So what I usually say to founders is, imagine that you had $1 million or $2 million in the bank account right this second. How would you build your company? What would you build? How would you build out your team? And then Gusher that, because we do it all day, every day. We've got more than 350 portfolio companies across the globe in every different vertical. The inspiration for really Gusher came from my mom. But most recently, it actually came from where I really started it, where it really made an impact. I was at a venture capital meeting in Washington, D.C., and there was a group of founders that they didn't look like everyone else. They didn't talk like everyone else. They didn't wear hoodies and go to Stanford or anything like that. But their ideas were damn brilliant. But they didn't know their chances of getting venture capital were basically non existent because they didn't fit the pattern. And so that's really what led to the impetus of Gusher. I said to my partners, hey, let's go ahead and what do you think about creating this idea? And they went for it.
I
We
love
gushered
that.
Gusher.
Yeah, I really like that, helping people who don't fit in the pattern, because I think, uh, correct me if I'm wrong, but like in the VC world, it's a lot of emphasis like on which schools you're from. I know that it's okay if you have a validated idea, but it does seem like these people have the correct educational credentials.
Right. You said exactly the correct in
Yeah.
terms of quotes. And what we call it is incestuous. It's very much an incestuous business. And anything like that typically results in poor product. Yeah, there's these huge winners and everything else. But the industry overall, if you take out the top 2 or 3% of venture capitalists, actually has a losing ROI, has a negative ROI of 1 or 2%. So if you take out just the top players, the model itself typically doesn't work overall.
That's interesting. So, as you encounter the barrier by entrepreneurs, what specific experiences drove you to challenge the traditional funding model and advocate for democratizing startup creation?
I think it's experiencing frustration. That frustration itself is insane. When you go out there and try to raise capital, and people do, or they're able to raise capital, but usually it's about 1 in 700 to 1 in 3,500. And the vast 95% of those are located in New York, Silicon Valley, or Israel. So your chances of getting venture capital is brutal. So unless you have very wealthy friends and family that want to give you money, your chances of being able to get startup capital is non-existent. And I just think that's a travesty that these people have these ideas in their head and they can't get them out. And that's the human potential that I'm looking to go ahead and unlock. That's really what we're looking to do.
Definitely. I think a lot of startup ideas can come from anyone, right? As long as you're
Yeah.
solving a real problem. And the fact that you're democratizing startup creation means that all these ideas that would not traditionally been funded, but are done by like quite a diverse group of people, can really create interesting companies.
It's also funny because what we did is we internally tracked certain stats on, we use our own rating system we don't tell anybody about, that we go ahead and say, what do we think the success rate is going to be on these companies, right? So we would, give this something called a J score, and we track them by certain things. And, even our numbers and whatever didn't align, meaning that we believe in the marketplace deciding whether or not an idea works or not. So we would think, let's say an idea is crap and this is horrible and there's no way it can work. And sure enough, the founder is able to get a team, it evolves into a better idea, and they take off like a rocket. And we're sitting there scratching our heads saying, that's exactly what the system's supposed to do. That's why we don't pass judgment. We let the market decide.
Yeah, I think that's a very good validator, because how would you know if the customers want something if you haven't tested it out on them?
Yeah, but even more importantly, it's like the ability for a founder to bring in somebody to their team for performance-based equity. That's a huge validator, because anybody will join your company for a paycheck. But who's going to join your company for the promise of future stock and help you bring this to life? The only people that'll do that fundamentally are zealots for the idea. So if zealots for the idea don't exist, you shouldn't be doing it. Or if you're not able to communicate that and recruit those people, you shouldn't be doing that idea because you're not ready for it. So you're able to fail very quickly in the beginning or succeed based upon your ability to tell that story.
Definitely. Like your first employees who come in with performance-based equity, they're the first validators because they believe in your idea, because they're not
It's
getting paid yet.
It's huge. It's gargantuan. Let me give you a quick example. We have a company called Happy Howl, run by a gentleman by the name of Colin Buckley. And he went ahead and his first team, he recruited this team of people, and they had managed $50 million, $100 million, $200 million budgets. But the problem is it failed miserably 6 weeks later. It imploded. But his second team took off like a rocket. He finally listened. And his second team all had something in common. The first team did not. And this is a dog food company, Panita. I want you to think like an 8-year-old. What did they all have in common that the first team did not? Any idea?
Okay, so dog food company, what did they have in common that the first team did not? Was it like a similar company as well, the first and the
I
second?
want you to think like an 8-year-old. What would an 8-year-old say? It's a dog food company. What did they all have in common?
They tested it out on real dogs,
They
owners of
had
dogs.
dogs. They were dog parents. They didn't have kids. All right. So they ate dog, breathed dog, lived dog, poop dog. They were all about dogs. They were zealots. And so that's the teams that come together. You want team that really gets what you're doing and fundamentally has the same problems and are really the same market. It's what we call the vested interest market, or VIM. The VIM is how you build your company on.
That makes a lot of sense because they're the domain experts, right? Because they actually have dogs. It's like building a baby, a company about babies, and you're not never having children.
Exactly.
But I do know that sometimes there's no founder market fit and it works, which is strange. That could happen as well.
Sure. But it's like anything. You're always going to have aberrations or things don't fit or whatever it may be. But that's the joy of life and that's the joy of business.
Definitely. So Gusher's approach of performance-based equity is unique and disruptive. Can you delve deeper into how it enables entrepreneurs to build startups without relying on traditional investors or capital?
Sure. Typically, when a founder starts a company, usually they're the idea person. They don't have the ability typically to go ahead and fundamentally create the product, or they have the ability to create the product, but they can't sell it and market it and do the operations and everything else. So when you form a company, typically you need the expertise of others to help bring that company to life. So most times people say, hey, I need capital. What's that capital used for? It's almost always used for people exclusively, the vast majority of it. Gusher simply bypasses that. People join a company in exchange for performance-based equity. Nobody gets a damn thing in that company unless the company succeeds, unless it's able to achieve its goals. And that includes us. We're also performance-based equity players. So it just frees up people because all these people have excess capacity. They have excess time. They have excess ability to do something. And so the founders are able to go ahead and collaborate and work with these people to make their company and bring it to life.
That's very interesting because you were talking about you guys as a team as well. So that means that Gusher provides mentorship as well for these startups, and you get paid after it succeeds as well.
We don't even get paid after. We get paid a long time. So we're equity holders also, and meaning that until there's a monetization event, we don't get anything. If something like a founder needs us at CES in Las Vegas to close the ex-chairman of Silicon Valley Bank on their deal, we've done that. If they need us in the middle of Wisconsin, which is a very cold place during winter to bring this factory into their deal, we've done that. If they go ahead and call us at Saturday at 2 a.m. Because the wrong honey was used in their manufacturing run and they're crying and desperate as to what the hell to do, we know what to do. We are there for them because we are everybody rowing in the same direction. And that's why the companies end up succeeding in a great way.
Wow, I really like that model. It's clear that Gusher believes in that great ideas can come from anywhere. How do you see this philosophy shaping the future of entrepreneurship and innovation?
We fundamentally sum it up in one line. Talent is spread evenly. Opportunity isn't. We are fixing that. And we really fundamentally believe that great ideas are not based upon geography. They're not based upon your income or education level or status or anything else. We've got everything from 80-year-old grandmas living in South Africa to 20-year-old college students in the U.S. launching successful companies across the globe. So it doesn't matter in terms of any of those things that usually matter to these other people. As a matter of fact, we see a higher rate with that diversity of ideas and the diversity of the market, that it just creates stronger companies. And our companies, the makeup of them is actually wild because each company looks like a mini UN. So you have all these people from all different areas, everything else bringing their expertise to it. And we think that typically will end up making better companies in the long run.
Definitely. I think diversity has clearly been shown that it increases revenues for companies as well. And also,
Sure.
like, I'm very curious, like, you talked about the grandma building a company. Like, which company did she build? I'm very curious now.
Sure. Her company is a textile company with a fabric, and they were able to do a QVC deal. I think they have QVC in your neck of the woods also, but they were able to get good distribution. It was an invention, a new type of product, and they were able to bring that product to life. And this is a person with no internet knowledge really or anything else, but were able to make it happen because she was able to get a team. She was able to get a team. And
That's
that was one of those
amazing.
deals where I said, no way. And sure enough,
Amazing. So, Chris, with your extensive entrepreneurial background, how does your experience inform and influence the strategies and services provided by Gusher?
I think a lot of it comes from the experience of us being able to know what's going to happen beforehand. I hate to say it, but when you have a lot of businesses that you've created, and you've had a lot of businesses that you've sold, and you've had a lot of businesses that you deal with, you start to see patterns. And so those patterns lead to what we call protocols. Protocols are internal steps that a company takes based upon what they're experiencing at that time to enable them to get to that next level. So when you have this different business experience, you're able to have these protocols that cut down on the learning curve of what a company has to go through. So it almost in a way accelerates what they're doing. And that's where that knowledge and experience pays off. We know what we're doing when it comes from that beginning startup, getting them to a $10 million valuation or more.
That's very interesting that you spoke about protocols. Are you able to share one of those protocols to us?
Protocols are really very specific steps. So let's say you're dealing with a UI UX designer and you're bringing them on. It'll be everything from covering the wireframes to the weekly meetings to setting the expectations up to what deliverables a UI UX designer should be doing and what periods of time and so on and so forth. So we really do mean that. At the extended end, let's say you're dealing with manufacturing and you're already at that stage. Okay, how to go ahead and do a purchase order to go ahead and get extended terms and deal with these manufacturers at a certain level. And that involves stuff like these face-to-face meetings, what to say in the meetings, how to interact with them, how to bypass what's called the first level contacts and being able to deal primarily at the presidents or the owners of these companies. So we really do break it down and get granular as they proceed to amp up their value.
That's very interesting that you have a really high level of detail for various industries as well, because you also run startups. You also have your own startups in many industries. I'm correct, right?
Absolutely. A ton of them. Myself, I've had more than 24 companies. My products have been sold in more than 11,000 stores across 23 countries. My tech products have been sold in more than 148, or I have users in more than, 148 countries across the globe. So pretty much everywhere.
You must have really great time management skills and like productivity skills, because are all these companies still yours, or have you sold many of them already so that you are able to manage more?
Sold many of them. Some were
Yeah.
dogs and did horrible. But really, my time management, I keep very simple. All I do is basically pick what is the priority. So whatever the priority is each day, I go from priority to priority. And by that, what is going to have the most impact, the greatest impact, that's what I spend my time doing. I try to stay away from the details, although sometimes I get caught in it, but it has to do with priorities and the value of time. That's what I do.
That's an excellent approach. So could you share some success stories or example of startups that have benefited from Gusher's model and achieved remarkable outcomes despite not conforming to the traditional funding criteria?
Sure. I was giving that example of that dog food
Yeah.
company earlier, and I don't know what you know about dog food, but dog food is a brutal industry. It is something that has been run by these gargantuan companies for literally 100 years. They don't give up shelf space. It is extremely capital intensive. And that company with its second team now a year and a half later is worth more than 10 million. I just got a report from them yesterday that they're growing more than 40% month over month. They've got national distribution and kicking butt, and they've done it all with $0 of investment. And that's what we've taken them through. But we have everything from dog food companies to medical device companies. One of our companies based out of London just got funded by Peter Thiel and is getting taken out. We have another company called Bod, which is another women's shapewear company, which is growing immensely. We have a company called Sim, which is Security in Motion. They create an electronics device called Nomad. We've got lots of companies. O Company is about to take off like a rocket. They just released, which is basically a private server on your wrist. We've got everything from B2B, B2C, B2B2C, consumer goods, manufacturing, SaaS, fintech, AR, VR, AI, you name it, we've got it.
That's fascinating because when I first read about your company, I honestly thought it would just be tech companies, but I love that like you have it in every single industry.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where people think there's all these barriers to creating this physical product. And electronics also seem to have this perception it's extremely hard to get going. But if you just follow the process, you just follow the path, you're able to do it. I don't care what company it is. I thought that medical companies would not be able to be gushered. But even so, we've got a lot of medical device, and now we're dealing with some other aspects of biotech, which may be able to be done. I'm not sure yet, but that's the only industry I'm wary of. But everything else we've been able to do.
It's very cool. So as a founder, what key lessons have you learned from building and scaling multiple companies that has helped you shape Gusher's mission and approach?
I think that the most important thing as a founder is to really set your standards high. And so typically when founders are starting out, they always feel like they're imposters in a way, that they have this idea, but they don't have anything of value. And I think that it's really just the reverse. They have this idea, which everybody says, oh, it's not the idea, it's the execution. Yeah, but once you start executing, you're suddenly in a different space. You're in this rarefied air. And so by setting your expectations very high from the beginning, you will attract people that are able to deliver that. Don't think that you're not worth anything. Don't think that, I'm starting out from nothing, so therefore this isn't valuable. Think just the reverse, and you'll end up getting the reverse.
That's a very great mindset to have because I think many entrepreneurs like they have imposter syndrome, right? And they're on the internet and they're just looking at, wow, look at all these entrepreneurs, like how are they worth billions, right? But I love how you're saying that you have to picture the end point right at the beginning because otherwise it's not possible to get there at all if you haven't had a plan or anything.
I had a startup say yesterday that just joined Gusher. They were like, oh my God, we've got all these pros applying to our company. Like these are people with 20 years of experience that have run all these other companies, wherever else. And I go, yeah, that's the point, is that you want to bring in top-notch people. You don't want to bring in people that learn on your deal, on your company. You want to bring in top-notch people that help you leapfrog generational development. So instead of going through it linearly, your creation of your company, you're able to leapfrog generational development so that your company becomes self-sustaining and or attracts larger scale capital.
I'm interested in what you said about how these people have 20 years of experience. Do you see like a pattern in like who they are? Are they like the people who have been laid off by tech companies at this time? Or are they like people who left their tech jobs because they want to work for these companies?
The people that get laid off end up becoming founders. All right. So that's definitely a little bit of a pattern there, but it's a good thing in that way. But the people that are the high level expertise, they're really just looking for something else where they can have impact. So they've already got money. They already have a high level. What they have is excess time. And they're like joining companies not to really be transactional, but because they buy into the idea. They get what the founder is trying to create there, and they want to be part of it. And that's what you want. That is the vested interest market, the people that have the most to gain from the success or failure of the company. That is VIM. The higher the level, the damn good. But you also want to make sure they roll up their sleeves and don't just sit back. They need to work. And that's the point of Gusher.
Definitely. So, with Gusher, you aim to connect entrepreneurs with the expertise and resources they need. Can you discuss the role Gusher plays in building a supportive startup ecosystem?
Sure. It all begins with the recruiting process. For us, the better the team, the better the outcome in terms of what you're looking to do. So we cover everything with a founder, from how to recruit, what to say, what specifically to do, really all through the life cycle of their company until they reach about the $10 million in sales volume. So a lot of that is automated stuff that's baked into our system, but a lot of it is face to face. A lot of it is getting on the phone, as I said earlier, at 2 a.m., holding their hand. But anything that they need, we pretty much do, because again, we don't get anything unless that company is successful.
So, how many companies have been successful via Gusher? Is there an approximate number?
Yeah, sure. We've got about an 80% win rate across the board. Right now, we've got more than 350 different portfolio companies, and we're growing at about a 10x rate. So we'll have about 3,500, right? I know, about 3,500 companies in the next 12 to 18 months. So we're growing pretty substantially.
But as you get to 3,500, are you able to pick up all those phone calls personally?
This is what we've done. We're coming out with our new system that, yes, we are, but in a different way. And so we're baking those protocols into our system tremendously, really as the next step to enable us to scale. But really, as if the value is there, meaning like it's something larger scale, will we get involved? Yeah. Do we still take the calls? Absolutely, because you have to. It's very much a people business in many respects, with the founders getting them going.
Definitely. So, looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of startup creation and how Gusher can continue to empower aspiring entrepreneurs?
By our numbers, there's about 700 million people across the globe that are trying to figure out how to start a business and get it going. Now, that can obviously range from anything from, hey, they need a cow to get milked, to they need to have an idea where they need a team. Our goal is not really to go after the existing ecosystem, that Silicon Valley, New York, Israel, VC ecosystem. Our goal is really to help as many people in the other part, that other 99.99%, that 700 million people. That's what we're interested in.
But do you also have people who would traditionally have gone to Silicon Valley but have come to Gusher instead?
Yeah, we've actually had funded companies that got Series A rounds that had an extremely bad burn rate because they fundamentally built their company incorrectly. And then we righted them. So meaning that about 10 to 15% of companies that come into Gusher are what are called legacy companies. These are companies that had operations, they had funding, and something went wrong. Usually they were in search of this magical product market fit. For us, we fundamentally don't believe in product market fit, meaning that we believe the company should be created from the very beginning to be self-sustaining. And most companies are created fundamentally incorrect. And so we're a contrarian about how they're created to have that product market fit from the very absolute beginning of the creation of the company.
So you said something about product market fit since the beginning. How is that done?
So think of it this way. Let's say you're a SaaS company or a medical device company, or I don't know, let's say you're a materials manufacturer. In terms of the way that companies are created now, they're always, let's say, funded, and then they try to build it, and then they're like, oh my God, there wasn't a market here. Why did we do this? All right. What I say to founders is, you're not a SaaS company. You're not a tech company, a fintech, or anything else. First and foremost, you are a marketing and sales company right from the beginning. So if you're a marketing and sales company right from the beginning, that changes the way that you start thinking about that company. So you start thinking about, how can we validate this right from the beginning without having a product, without having anything? So when I was creating companies, even just 5-10 years ago, a very specific way, we created companies and we would go ahead and contact retailers with our specific sales sheets or whatever without even having the product created. If we were able to get meetings, we then rushed to create that product to show up, to that meeting and have it done. So we knew that there was a market for it before we created it. And you can do everything from pre-selling to testing the market to everything out there before you even get going.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense because I think there's also been a shift, right, from an MVP model towards like just letting people sign up with their emails, because why build the MVP anyway?
Yeah, and for us, when we say MVP, we don't mean minimum viable product. We mean market viable product. And there's a fundamental difference. One is self-sustaining. So when companies are created on Gusher, their main goal is to have that company self-sustaining from the get-go. Because those are the types of companies that, yeah, they succeed because they don't have to go around begging investors to fund their next stage of growth. They can do it internally. And believe it or not, those are the companies that then attract investors anyway. And then you're in the power seat as a founder because you created something right from the beginning where you found the gold vein. That's important.
So it means that Gusher believes in bootstrapping all the way until you actually attract VC funding, because that will come if you are successful.
We believe this. We believe that you can get to about 10 million in sales volume by bootstrapping, and you can get there pretty quickly. When you get above 10 million, it becomes harder, where there may need to be capital infusion to do what's called a land grab, or to be able to capture a market more fully. But to get to $10 million in sales volume, you don't need a damn thing.
Wow, that's fascinating. So we are closing up for today's podcast. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing all your expertise.
Sure. Thanks for having me.